Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Somewhere in the Middle with Michelle Berard. I'm your host, Michelle Berard, founder and CEO of Michelle Berard LLC, and I am so super happy to be here with you right now, sharing this hour where we examine all those places where spirit meets life and the challenges and joys that brings. We are on our second to last show, guys, and as we get closer and closer to the end of this nearly 8-year run, I don't know, I'm finding myself excited at everything, just thinking about everything that we've already done, and everything we've accomplished and the messages we've been able to share from all of these wonderful authors and coaches and entrepreneurs. It's been amazing, and I'm so grateful to all of you for riding this out with me for all this time. So I just want to remind you all that we're going to have our last show next month, and thank you for being with me all of this time. I also want to thank my guest on the October 18th show, business consultant David Newby. You can connect with David on social media. He is very active on LinkedIn, so you can find him easily there as in particular. If you missed that show, make sure you listen to the replay. You can find our complete show archives, including the October 18th show, at the somewhereinthemiddlepodcast.com. Now, this month's guest empowers leaders with strategic business solutions. Alex Brueckmann is an entrepreneur, the author of 3 Wall Street Journal best-selling books, and a highly regarded speaker. His most notable book is The Strategy Legacy, which has made a significant impact in the business world. Alex has built successful companies in Europe and Canada and has led client projects worldwide. He's the founder and CEO of Brueckmann Strategy Consultants Limited, where he helps CEOs and executive teams design and implement impactful business strategies and human-centric high-performance leadership. More than 20 years ago, Alex transitioned from being a music journalist to studying general management at prestigious institutions such as the European Business School in Germany, Universidad ORT in Uruguay, INSEAD in France, and Harvard Business School in the United States. Over the years, Alex has developed a unique approach to make leadership and strategy accessible for all leaders and executives. His clients range from high-growth Inc. 5000 businesses to Fortune 50 enterprises, including some of the biggest brands in automotive, healthcare, tech, logistics, industrial manufacturing, hospitality, and finance. Alex is a firm believer that business strategy is not just a tool, but a powerful force that empowers and creates clarity about what matters to grow impact and profits. He tailors his approaches to help his clients make choices that position their businesses to win. His process reduces friction and overwhelm for leaders and their organizations, creating commitment and accountability to get results. So I am really excited about today's guest. He's got so much information to share about business and how to do business better. And so I'm really excited. I'm going to make an attempt to say his name the right way. So I'm happy to introduce I'm happy to welcome Alex Brueckmann to Somewhere in the Middle with Michelle Berard. I did it okay.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Hey, I'm so excited. Alex, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for the invitation, Michelle.
Well, I like to start my interviews with 2 questions and then see where things go from there. I really like to get to understand who you are. So if you're ready, I will ask those 2 questions.
Go ahead.
Alex Brueckmann. Oh, I didn't do that well that time. Who are you? And how did you become who you are today?
I would say first and foremost, I'm a 44-year-old father to a 2.5-year-old toddler. That's my main responsibility. It's my first child. So I redefine who I am as a person through becoming a father and growing into that role. But obviously we are wearing many different hats. So if you ask my family who I am, they would probably say a passionate player of card and board games. If you ask my colleagues from university, they would say someone who likes to work hard and party hard. If you ask my wife, she would probably say someone who from time to time really gets on my nerves. So, but from a professional perspective, I would say I'm a strategy facilitator. I write books. I give speeches about business strategy, not in a theoretic context, but how we can actually all become better strategists in the sense of achieving the clarity that we need in order to build the businesses that we run.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And the part that I find the most amazing about that is, at least here in the US, it's unusual, I think, for men to start off a who are they discussion with saying, I'm a father.
Yeah, I guess for me, this was a lifelong dream, which I pursued for quite some time, that kind of fell to slip away. And when the opportunity presented itself, apparently it became a huge part of my identity.
I think that's amazing because I used to say, if people ask me what I did or who I was, I'd say my most important job is being a mom.
Yeah.
And everything else I do is in service to that. So you mentioned redefining yourself with this new role, or relatively new role. You 2 years in, man, you're almost a veteran. What did that look like for you?
Becoming a father?
Well, redefining your role.
I used to work a lot because I loved it. I enjoyed it. I ran a company in Europe, and I really loved having deep conversations with my clients. So that meant I was traveling a lot. I was running workshops with them. So I defined myself a lot through the work that I did. And I mean, the good thing about becoming a father is you see that child grow. Your girlfriend develops a belly, you know? So this is not a surprise. This comes, you can prepare yourself, and then everything is different than you expect it to be, as always, right? So in our case, our son was born in January 2020, and we all know what happened there. So growing into the role of a father was difficult in the sense that it was in many ways fear-driven because of the COVID pandemic. You know, there is nothing that can protect that child other than you. So growing into that role and shifting my identity from a boyfriend that loves his work to a caring father that first and foremost is there to protect his family, that was kind of, I would have loved to do that outside of COVID, but we got through it safe and sound. So I'm thankful for the experience. And I talked to my mom a lot about this experience, and she said, we had something similar when you were a child. Living in Germany in the early 80s also meant that there was a permanent nuclear threat between the West and the East Bloc. And there were demonstrations going on the streets. And my parents were always afraid of living in between those two superpowers and having nuclear weapons stationed on German ground. And so my mom shared how she dealt with that fear. And that actually helped me grow into my role as a father as well.
That's amazing. And that, you know, that your mom, as an American, you know, we don't really think about that. About how do people in Germany and places like that feel about having been sandwiched between or in the middle of our drama. That's what I'm going to call it. In the middle of our drama, and the fear that that brought up, and how she was able to, through her experience with that, really help you to navigate. So how did that transform your business, your approach to your career?
Apparently, when you are a father and you used to travel a lot, you don't want to go back to that old habit once you've experienced life as a father that sees his child grow up. And I had the amazing opportunity to basically stop traveling because of COVID and see him grow up. I've been around just as much as his mom. And that means he has a very strong relationship with me. And I wouldn't trade that for any job, client, project, or money in the world. So I couldn't just go back. When the opportunity presented itself, I felt I had an obligation toward myself and my family that I preserve some of that magic that we created during COVID. So I shifted my business model slightly. 99% of the work that I do today is remote, and my clients, they have just accepted it because, I mean, honestly speaking, we've all done it for the last 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. So why change again when you see that the results that you can create are basically the same than being on site with a client all the time and traveling so much. In addition, I live in the Lower Mainland, which is the area around Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And when you know this area, you know that there is always a slight dust in the air, which is just smog. And during COVID, that smog disappeared. And that because people were traveling less, we worked from home, there was less heavy commercial traffic as well. So I realized that I actually need to rethink how my travel habits negatively impact the planet. Once you have a child and you realize that in 2100, I will be dead by then, most likely, but my son will be 80 years old. If we continue to destroy our planet at the same speed as we've done in the past 150 years, I am very reluctant to think that this is a planet worth living on in the year 2100. So we need to change the way we operate, we need to change the ways we create value for stakeholders, for shareholders. We need to understand that we can do business in a different way without just wrecking hayloft with our planet.
That is amazing. Yeah. I was in LA, or outside of LA, when the pandemic hit, and not having all those cars, not having all those people out. Do you know and I'm from down south, so you have to understand the context. I went to LA and I had not seen a single bird until after the pandemic was in full swing. Mm. Several months in, I actually heard birds outside. And I was so confused that I had to go outside and look with my own eyes because I didn't believe that I heard birds chirping.
Yeah.
And just that minor difference. I saw a bee for the first time. I'm like, and this stuff is ubiquitous in the South, Down south, we have lots of trees and bees and birds and all that, but not seeing that for so long. And then all of a sudden seeing it, I was like, wow, we really do. If you are a skeptic, we really do have an impact.
Yeah, we do.
And it's very negative. That's amazing. So your clients adapted to your new way of doing business, and you were able to offer, I'm presuming, additional services to them, or a different type of services. What kinds of things were you able to do with them that you weren't doing before?
I always thought, and I think my entire industry of strategy consultants believes, that the only real way of helping clients is when you are with them, like physically with them, on site, or at least to a large degree. You work in a workshop room. There is always one of us present. I'm not saying it needs to be in a physical environment. It can be in a virtual environment as well. But we often think that we are the center of the world and that our knowledge is so key and that we need to be there in order to ask the right questions at the right point in time. Yes, of course, we deliver a ton of value by being there and working with people in a synchronous way. But I always, and that goes years back, I always was like, there must be a way also in our industry to provide content that is not just theoretic strategy content, but that actually helps clients through a process to create their own business strategy without me being present all the time. And that has less a financial trigger. It has more a trigger in availability of time. I can only sell my time once. But if I would be able to create something that helped people without me having to be present, I could help so many more people. So that was when I just pulled some friends together and we were like, okay, how could this look like? Can we create something that is not like just another theoretic course about strategy like the many that I took in my life? Also the online courses at Harvard Business School, for example. This is great, really great content, but it is, I don't want to say generic, but in a way it is learning about strategy, looking at other businesses. And then you need to make the transition and transfer that knowledge that you gather and try to apply it to your own world. But you need to do that alone. There is just nothing available, no process that helps you doing that. So I created a new online course, a new masterclass about creating your very own business strategy. I would have never done that. And I mean, we can sell this course for a few $100s compared to working with a strategy consultant that costs you thousands a day, usually. So there is, first of all, I reach so many more people. I can impact so many more businesses now with this online course, because let's be honest, for 80% of the businesses out there, this is just enough. This is what they need. And they don't have the time or money, most of them, to actually hire someone like me on a full-time basis for a certain amount of days or weeks. So all of a sudden we were able to think in different ways how we create value for our clients. And that was probably the biggest shift that came with the pandemic.
So for a small business, explain what a business strategy really is and what that might look like for a small, a tiny startup, one-person shop, two people shop.
And that's the funny part. Since I changed my business model, I actually work with smaller businesses. I used to work with like really big brands only and companies that have thousands of employees. Now I work with solopreneurs sometimes and really small startups, which is interesting. So what strategy actually means, that the sense of the word, we use strategy as a term. We hear it thrown around everywhere all the time, in sports, in business, everywhere. What it actually means is, how do I reach a defined goal in the most effective and efficient way? That's what a strategy is. It helps you navigate like a map. It helps you navigate on territory that you don't know. So in the end, what you create when you say, I create a business strategy, what you create is a framework that helps you take decisions along the way toward a desired state of your business. And to make this very simple, strategic clarity is all about knowing how exactly do I want my business to operate and look like in, say, 2 to 3 years from now. That is what we often call a vision statement. But we're not talking about a vision statement in the sense that a fancy marketing claim that you put on your website, but something really, really specific that helps you imagine, if you could time travel 2 to 3 years, what would it look like? And from there, the next step is to understand, okay, if that's 2 to 3 years, we can't just take that vision, be happy about it, put it on the wall or put it in a drawer, and then in 2 or 3 years, we pull it back out and be like, have we achieved it? That's just not how it works, right? Then those 2 years are gone. So you better make sure you understand what the gold nuggets in this vision are, how you can track your progress along the way, That's the second step. So defining the measuring criteria that help you see the progress toward your vision, and then being brutally honest with yourself and what you do, and define the handful of priorities that will push the needle in the right direction on those gold nuggets. That's what strategy is all about. Know where you want to be, know how to track your progress, know what to do to move the needle.
So does this get small businesses into using tools like KPIs and things like that? Or do you have another process that KPIs are all the rage, right? That's what everybody's doing now. So how do you help guide small businesses that probably aren't familiar with some of these things unless the folks came out of corporate?
So the language that I use, for example, in my strategy course is absolute plain language. I don't use any fancy terms that only people understand that have a business degree or an MBA. I don't care about that. I talk about strategy like a normal human being, because that's what we need. We need to understand what strategy is, not just a fancy word that's being thrown around. So it's the process that matters. And I use the exact same process for Fortune 500 companies that I use for small businesses. And I use the exact same language. I adjust my language here and there to match the language that my clients speak. So I use terminology that they are familiar with. So if someone that doesn't have a business background comes into my world and takes my online course, for example, about creating a business strategy, they will find that this is normal people language and that they actually understand what I want from them. And of course, we use terminology like measuring criteria or KPIs, because what you can't measure, you can't manage. But we introduce these terms in a way that they make sense for your business reality. So when you're coming around the corner in the strategy course and be like, oh, right, wonderful, Kaplan and Norton, let's create a balanced scorecard. No way, because no one needs that. No one knows how to do that. And we don't have time to do that in a business, in a small business. This whole strategy creation and implementation part needs to be something that works while you are operating your business. You're working with clients. They want something from you. You don't have like 5 days a week just for strategy design. So this needs to be something that can be integrated in your reality, like maybe 2 or 3 hours a week. As you go through the course, you invest maybe 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week, whatever works for you, self-paced, video-based, you go one step at a time. And lo and behold, after 3-4 weeks, you look down in your workbook and you're like, I wouldn't have guessed I could reach that point. And I think this is where what makes me particularly proud, that we were able to distill our knowledge into an online course that people can take without having to fear that they need to have a business degree as a prerequisite, or that it costs them thousands of dollars, or that it's super time intense, or that they don't get it. It's created for every small business that is fed up of being sold, let's say, some tactical marketing stuff as the next golden thing that will boost your business. Or when I hear terms like, will 10x your business, I'm like, oh my God, this is just ridiculous. And people who fall for this, I really can't understand that, because there is no free lunch. We all know that. So why look for this magic wand that doesn't exist?
Well, I think it's really interesting that you were able to take what are fairly complex concepts and kind of, I want to say, distill the information. Is that the right term? Probably.
That is a perfect description of what we did. So it's not about dumbing something down. It's about distilling the essence out of something and help people understand it in terms that make sense for their business.
So what kinds of things should small businesses be looking at when they're thinking about creating a business strategy? And how does a business strategy differ from a business plan?
Well, this is a very good question. So let's start with that second part. A business plan is touching topics that are not part of your business strategy. So your business strategy, in an ideal world, is part of your business plan. Okay. A business plan is granularly describing, for example, your financials over the next, let's say, 24 months. A business strategy doesn't do that. A business strategy is a framework against which you benchmark decisions along the way in order to fulfill your financial targets, for example. So these things are inherently completely different. The magic happens when you combine them into one logic concept and you see how they help each other. What was the first part of the question again? Sorry about that.
Well, what kinds of things should a small business be thinking about as they're wanting to develop a business strategy?
In June 2023, one of my 2 new books will appear, will be published, and it contains a concept that I call the 9 elements of organizational identity. So when we talk about business strategy, we need to understand that the process of creating a business strategy is actually a perfect vehicle to think left and right, and not just to think about profit maximization, for example. So when you use your strategy process and think beyond just the pure business aspect and ask yourself, can we use this process in a way that we also become 100% clear about the impact that we want to create with our business, both socially and environmentally, for example? That often links to terms like purpose. So how do we understand what the unique value is that our business brings to the world, and why us? So when we take this concept of impact and ask ourselves how we using what we do every day to create positive change, then all of a sudden our business becomes more than just a mere tool to generate profits. So that is one of the elements of those 9 that I think are absolutely fundamental. They are at the core, or need to be at the core, of the discussions in a business about their strategy. Because if you do not think impact, your strategy becomes a pure tool about profit maximization. And we have enough of that already. We don't need more of that. All right. So I guess impact is one. Another one that we need to think about when we talk about business strategy, or in other words, where the business strategy process is an ideal tool to think about it, is how do we actually work with each other? What are some of the behavioral guidelines that make the world that we live and operate in and work in worth living in and operating in? So what some people use the term culture. What corporate culture, or what culture do I want to create with my business? And you don't need to be a huge business to think about these terms. I'm a solopreneur in the end. Everyone that works with me, that I consider part of my team, they run their own businesses. We are just a network, right? So, but how I talk to the people that I work with, how I value my clients, how I operate with people, this is creating a certain culture. And this either is something that helps people live a happier life, or it's something that makes people miserable. You can't just find that middle ground, because, if you want to create a positive impact on people, think about the values that drive you into doing what you do. Think about how you can positively impact the lives of your employees or the people you are in touch with every day. So these are some of the elements of those 9 that I quickly mentioned, that regardless of how small your business is, you can think about and incorporate in your strategy process.
So I'm going to ask what I think is the key question, and that is, how hard is this to do? Because it sounds you gotta kind of dig deep at a personal level to get at some of these answers. And I mean, that sounds tough.
Yes, but is there an alternative? I mean, what is the alternative? Live a life that is shallow and avoid the real questions that you want to ask? I mean, if you want to live a happy life, there is no way around these questions. If you want to live a life that fulfills you, that you can look back on your deathbed and be like, I did some really stupid stuff, but I also did some really great things. I mean, if you don't operate based on who you are as an individual to fulfill the dreams that you have in your life, why live a life that's not worth it? So when you're a business owner and you don't, especially when you run a small business, when you don't connect who you are and what you stand for and what you want to achieve in your business and incorporate that in your life and incorporate it in your business, you lose a tremendous opportunity to stand out. Because let's be frank, there are hundreds of thousands of businesses around the world that do the same things in every industry. Why would someone work with you? Or if you are a corporate leader, if I took away salary and promotions as a means to incentivize your people that work for you, why would they still want to work for you? What is it that you bring to their lives above and beyond transactional exchange? So yes, it is hard, but there's absolutely no alternative to it. If you want to live a fulfilled life, you need to find answers to these questions. Of course, you can also create a business strategy that does not dig that deep. It would still be better than not having a strategy at all. But, you know, I'm just suggesting if you really want to build something of significance, and I'm not talking about a business or a statue, I'm talking about your life, it might be worth thinking about these questions.
I think that's awesome. That's awesome. So, Alex, give me 3 key things that business people could do right now to get on the road to preparing a business strategy.
If you want to have it really easy, go to my website and download some of the free resources that are there. They just help you get into that thought process, into thinking and pondering with these questions. You don't need to create a business strategy right away from scratch. There are ways to warm yourself up for the idea of creating a business strategy that goes beyond just money. And I believe that one of those 3 things are free resources on my website. Another thing that people can do is start reading relevant books about, I wouldn't say necessarily about business strategy, because most of them have just one idea at the core that help you understand a certain aspect of strategy, but they don't help you really see the big picture. So if you want to understand certain aspects of strategy, start reading. And I would say the third element is many people fantasize about building a thriving business. Those are the people that are all talk and no action. They wait for someone magically to appear like a knight in shining armor and show them the way. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So whatever you do to build a thriving business, you need to do it yourself. And that might be get out there and find the best possible client for your business. And when it comes to strategy, it might just be start thinking more strategically instead of just falling victim to a hustle culture day in and day out and working 15 hours a day. The biggest benefit for small businesses when it comes to strategic clarity is they all of a sudden achieve the same results with way less input. So most of the clients that I work with, they're amazed how much time they actually have for their hobbies while they achieve exactly the financial goals that they have. Why? Because they cut all the busy work. But you can't cut your busy work unless you know that it's busy work. And that's what strategic clarity gives you.
Awesome. So 3 keys. 1, go to Alex's website, use the free resources to start thinking, start getting your mind right, is what I would call it, about strategy. 2, start reading more. We all need to read more, probably, Alex. So that's a great one for anything. And then 3, it sounds like it was cutting out the busy work or figuring out what is essential to making the progress that you want to make. Did I hear that correctly?
Today, absolutely. What you can do today is check your work calendar for the next 2 weeks and ask yourself, what do I already know is not helpful? And cut it out. This is not about being perfect at this stage, because you can't be perfect at this stage. You don't have that level of strategic clarity yet. But you know deep down inside that, I don't know, those 2 hours that you blocked to create the next 20 Instagram reels will probably not really help you to build a business.
Awesome. So I'm going to start cutting things immediately on your advice, Alex. I agree 100%. We all know what we're wasting time on, or could be spending our time more effectively on. Alex Brueckmann. Did I do that well this time?
Yeah, that was really good.
Tell everybody how to connect with you.
the easiest way is through my website, alexthestrategist.com. That brings you right to the landing page, and from there you see different paths that you can take on my website. There are tons of free resources there. There's, for example, a way to figure out all the podcast interviews that I ever gave. There is a way to just download some of the free strategic resources that I have on the website. There's information about my upcoming books there. And you can just read my blog. And as we talked about, start educating yourself more about what strategy is and how it helps you as a small business owner, for example.
Awesome. Alex Brueckmann, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Well, that's our show this month, guys. You can reach me online at urbanbookeditor.com or michelleberard.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as Urban Book Editor. Send me a note. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you tune into the final episode of Somewhere in the Middle with Michelle Berard. We'll take a brief trip down memory lane, highlighting a few memorable interviews. We'll talk about the lessons learned and what's next. Our final show will be on Friday, December 20th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern at the somewhereinthemiddlepodcast.com. Let's continue the conversation. You guys be good, stay mindful, and remain prayerful. Peace and blessings, y'all.